In this video, we go over 50 practice exam questions you can use to study for the 2022 real estate exam. Don't worry, I'm just the introduction guy. You won't have to deal with my movie trailer voice for all 50 questions. Each question has a 10-second countdown timer before the instructor explains the answer. Remember, you can always hit the pause button if you need more time to answer. All right, let's get a little study music in the background and get to work.
The seller's listing agent has provided the buyer with a copy of the state agency disclosure and stated that she is working for the seller as an agent. The buyer begins to discuss how much he would be prepared to pay. The listing agent should wait for the buyer to make an offer, then utilize the information to assist the seller. See what the buyer says, then decide if the seller should know. Let the buyer talk, since it may benefit the seller and listing agent. Stop the buyer and remind him that all confidential information must be shared with the seller. In this case, the agent must stop the buyer and remind them that all confidential information must be shared with the seller. Licensees have a fiduciary duty to their principals, but they also owe the customer fair and honest dealing. 4. If a seller has entered into an executory contract and wishes to make a counteroffer on another offer that just arrived, the counteroffer should be as follows. Contingent depending on approval by the buyer of the contract. Contingent on the contract not closing. Contingent on the first contract closing on time. Only drafted by a lawyer. Explanation. The answer is contingent on the contract not closing. If the first contract does not close, the seller will sell it to you. But they will only accept offers if the first one fails. 5. Who is protected by FHA loan insurance? Lender. Federal government. Borrower. Buyer. The clause in a mortgage that allows the lender to call the entire unpaid balance upon default is called the balloon payment clause, acceleration clause, cancellation clause, defeasance clause. Explanation. Acceleration clause is the correct answer here. The acceleration clause lets the lender essentially fast forward all of the money that a borrower owes over the entire loan, making it due immediately. This can be done for any default, not just non-payment. 8. When a seller breaches a sales contract, the buyer may do all of the following except sue for monetary damages, collect liquidated damages, sue for specific performance, rescind the contract. Explanation. The only thing a seller can't do here is collect liquidated damages. Liquidated damages are only available to the seller and are paid out of any deposits that the buyer has put down during the sale process. Liquidated damages are available only to the seller. The buyer has all the other remedies listed. 9. A lawsuit to force a party to complete the requirements of the contract is called a suit for specific performance, damages, injunction, compensation. Explanation. A suit for specific performance is a lawsuit to force one party of the contract to fulfill their end of the agreement. Damages are a monetary award that you can get in addition if the other person doesn't do what they're supposed to do. 10. Property taxes are typically established at what level? National and state levels only. State level only. Local or county levels. Federal, state, and local levels. Explanation. Taxes can be established on a local or county level. The states may also have additional taxes, but the federal government does not have the power to tax real estate. Regarding property taxes, they can and do charge taxes on money earned via real estate. 11. A second offer on a home before the seller accepts the first should be immediately submitted to the seller. Returned to the offeror if it does not provide better terms than the first offer. Held pending a decision on the first offer. Rejected by the broker. Explanation. The broker should tell the seller about every offer immediately. Even the most ridiculous $1 offer must still be relayed to the seller. The broker must tell the seller about every offer right away, not just some of them, or only the offers they think the owner will accept. 12. The most frequent contingency in a sales contract is title insurance, financing, first right to accept, leasing contracts on land. Explanation. The financing contingency is the most commonly used contingency in the sales contract. It allows the buyer to back out of the transaction without any penalty if they are unable to obtain a loan. 13. Which of the following terms best describes a form of real property ownership with the right of occupancy and use of the specific property for a specific portion of each year for either a fixed number of years or forever? Blanket lease. Estate for years. Life estate. A timeshare. Explanation. Timeshare is the answer here. Purchasers acquire undivided rights to real property with a right to use the property for a fixed or variable length of time, often called the ownership contract. There's usually a hint within timeshare questions. A specific portion of time each year probably always points to timeshare being the answer. Since leases can be for a period of a year, but almost never recur for the same period again without being called a renewal. 14. An interest-only loan is known as amortized, non-negotiable, straight, installment. Explanation. A straight loan is the answer on this one. A straight or term note is one that provides for payments of only interest during the loan period and a lump sum payment of principal, balloon payment, at the end of the term. 15. The buyer, even though he has signed the purchase and sale contract, can withdraw his offer to purchase until the acceptance is signed by the listing broker, mailed via certified means only, delivered to the offeree's residence, communicated. Explanation. Communicated is the answer here. The acceptance must be communicated to create a contract. This can be by mail, delivery, fax, etc. Communication may be effective when sent rather than when it is actually received. Note that this does not factor in attorney review laws or contingencies, but looks specifically at negotiating real estate contracts. 16. Which of the following deed forms may convey no ownership rights at all? Special warranty deed, quitclaim deed, general warranty deed, sheriff's deed. Explanation. The answer is a quitclaim deed. The quitclaim deed is the only one of these deeds that does not claim to convey a specific interest. The quitclaim deed will convey any interest that the grantor may have even if they don't have any, so as the name implies. The grantor will cease to claim that I have any interest after using a quitclaim deed to transfer the property. That's where the name quitclaim comes from. They are saying they will quit claiming they have an interest. 17. The broker working for the buyer must tell the seller the buyer's place of employment, of the buyer's criminal history, of the buyer's interest in other properties, if the buyer cannot qualify for a loan. Explanation. If the buyer cannot qualify for a loan. If a buyer fails to qualify for a loan, their agent must notify the seller's agent immediately. This is considered a material fact and must be discussed. Criminal history, employment information, and potential interest and other properties does not need to be disclosed. 18. One of the requirements for a valid contract known as mutual agreement is also called a mutual rescission, dual agency, bilateral contract, meeting of the minds. Explanation. Meeting of the minds is another way to say mutual agreement. 19. The property taxes that are paid in arrears are $6,000, and the closing is January 21st. The buyer has the day of closing. Using a 365-day year, what will be the amount on the settlement sheet? $180.82 debit seller, credit buyer. $183.33 debit buyer, credit seller. $183.33 debit seller, credit buyer. $180.82 debit buyer, credit seller. Explanation. For a full math review, check out our other math videos that explain each question and break down the methods to manually get the answer. The answer is $180.82 debit buyer, credit seller. 20. Coercion and duress of a buyer would make a contract voidable, at the option of the seller. Voidable, at the option of the buyer. Invalid. Voidable, at the option of either the buyer or seller. Explanation. Voidable is the answer here, and the option is on the buyer side. If a person enters into a contract and is taken advantage of, whether by duress, coercion, etc., the contract is voidable. The person who was taken advantage of is able to void it. 21. The taxes are $964.50, paid in advance. The closing is November 3rd. Use actual days in the year. The seller is to pay for the date of closing. What is the debit and credit? $131.46. $144.98. $153.26. $164.33. So just like the other math questions that pop up in these reviews, we're going to answer all in a specific math video. The answer is $153.26. 22. Taxation is set by state law, set by federal law, set by county or local law, one of the government's rights. Explanation. While all answers here sound plausible, the answer is one of the government's rights. Taxation is the government's right, and they are payable at the state, federal, and county or local levels. 23. All of the following is an advantage to the purchaser of property who finances it by a package mortgage, except the interest rate is higher than through conventional installment financing. The buyer deals with only one lender. Total payments are uniform throughout the life of the loan. The payments are distributed over a longer period. Explanation. So the answer on this one should be kind of obvious. Higher interest rate is not an advantage for someone who is paying it. To go in a little bit more detail on package mortgages, this is just a loan that covers the real property and the personal property. So if someone wants to buy a large condo with all of the perfect furniture in it already, they could use a package mortgage to do it. Payments are usually uniform for the term of the loan, and the term of the loan is usually longer. 24. Compared to physical life, economic life is usually shorter or longer, depending on the type of improvement. Shorter, longer, the same. Explanation. Shorter is the answer here. Economic life by definition can't be longer than physical life because at the end of the physical life the property would be destroyed, and therefore no longer valuable. Economic life refers to how long property is profitable. 25. The relationship between a real estate agent and his or her client is which of the following? A general agency, a fiduciary relationship, universal agency, a dual agency relationship. Explanation. Fiduciary relationship is best here, without any additional information. All of the other answers are possible relationships but don't describe the typical agent-client relationship. General agency is usually related to property management. Universal agency is created by power of attorney, and dual agency requires specific written authorization in the states that allow it to be practiced. 26. When a title insurance policy is issued, premiums are paid on an annual basis. Neither of these. An inspection of the records has been made. Both of these. Explanation. The answer is that an inspection of the records has been made. When a title company issues the title policy, they inspect the public records. The policy may have exceptions listed, and the title policy will be insured as it appears on the public record. Remember that the standard title policy protects lender, not the borrower. Borrowers can usually purchase additional policy coverage for themselves at an additional cost. 27. When a sales contract is signed, the earnest money is not legally necessary, required by law. The consideration set by the buyer. Explanation. Answer here is not legally necessary. Earnest money is customary, not required. It's just done out of tradition. 28. A zoning ordinance is an restriction, reservation, easement, lien. Explanation. Zoning ordinances are restrictions. They limit the use of a property. If you owned a lot and want to build a car wash on it, but that lot happens to be in a residential neighborhood, you will be restricted from building your car wash there by the local zoning ordinances. 29. If the owner of a condominium defaults on his mortgage, the owners of the remaining units become subject to foreclosure, must file an injunction against the defaulting owner, are not affected by the defaulting owner's actions, must immediately institute a suit to quiet title. Explanation. If an owner of a condo defaults on their mortgage, the other units in the building are unaffected. Condo ownership is fee simple ownership, just like a single-family house, with the main difference being the shared common elements like the hallway, the roof, and other areas that everyone in the condominium pays maintenance fees to maintain. 30. Adding a home warranty to the purchase contract for a resale home can do all of the following except give the buyer peace of mind if a system fails after closing, add a new home warranty of habitability, lessen the liability of the seller and broker for items that may fail after closing, lessen the seller's liability if an appliance or system fails after closing. Explanation. The answer here is add a new home warranty of habitability. They kind of snuck in a term from the chapter on leasing about a warranty of habitability, which relates to a tenant filing constructive eviction and moving out when a property is not up to standard or is uninhabitable. That really has nothing to do with the home warranty. It's just a similar word. The other three enter choices actually describe things that a home warranty will do for someone. 31. Trust accounts hold buyer's funds only, funds not belonging to the firm, funds for the firm, commissions and other sellers, seller's funds only. Explanation. Trust account hold money that does not belong to the firm or broker. This could be a security deposit, earnest money from the transaction, or any other funds being held for a third party related to that brokerage. Trust accounts cannot hold personal money or profits from the company. 32. The rate of taxation expressed as thousandths of a dollar is called the value, assessed, ad valorem, mill rate. Explanation. Mill rate is the answer here. Ad valorem means relating to value, and the assessed value is the amount the tax assessor determines when evaluating value. 33. Closing occurs on April 23rd. When is the first mortgage interest payment due? July 1st. May 23rd. June 1st. May 1st. Explanation. June 1st is the answer here. Mortgage interest is paid in arrears. The month after to due. If the loan closed at the end of April, April was paid for at the time of closing, and the payment in June will cover the interest accrued in May. That payment will also include the principal for May and June. 34. A lease for less than 1 year. May be oral, but must be reduced to writing within 30 days. Must be in writing. May be oral. Is unenforceable. Explanation. The answer for this one is leases may be oral if they are for less than a year. 35. A broker lists a home for sale. The seller and broker are both aware that the roof leaks but conceal this information from the buyer. After the buyer moves in, he discovers the leaking roof. The actions of the seller and broker represent all of the following except unintentional misrepresentation, fraud, gross misrepresentation, a violation of the license law. Explanation. So the only thing that broker and buyer did not do is commit unintentional misrepresentation. They knew about the issue and they did not disclose it, so it was not unintentional. 36. The promissory note must contain an acceleration clause and an prepayment clause, conveyance clause, prepayment penalty, alienation clause. Explanation. This is one where you want to make sure you read it carefully. The answer is a prepayment clause. Prepayment penalties are illegal in some states, so they are optional, and alienation classes are also optional depending on the preferences of the lender. The prepayment clause is required so the borrower and lender are clear on what happens if they prepay. 37. To appraise a special use building, an appraiser would most likely use the comparison approach, market data approach, capitalization approach, cost approach. Explanation. Cost approach is the answer here. Generally, when we see a special use building, they're talking about a church, a municipal building, or some sort of building that is not commonly bought and sold. An easy way to remember this is to look and see if there are any comparables. If not, it's not going to be the comparison method. And if we don't have any income to measure, it won't be the income method. That leaves us with the cost approach. 38. In a single agency relationship, a real estate broker represents both buyer and seller. Only a buyer or seller, not both. The seller only. The buyer only. Explanation. Only a buyer or seller, not both, is the answer here. Single agency means just that they represent one party. 39. The type of agency, which is typical in property management, in which the agent has limited authority to bind the principal, is known as specific, Universal, general, special. Explanation. The answer here is a general agent. You can think of special agency as having only one task, and general agency as having many tasks for their principal or client. You can remember a property manager is often juggling multiple balls while keeping several plates spinning all at the same time. They are collecting rent, evaluating rental applications, scheduling repairs, managing a budget, and responding to resident requests. Many duties for their principal means they are a general agent. 40. ABC Realty has a listed property for the price of $90,000. A buyer has instructed her agent to submit a written offer of $75,000. The buyer's agent refuses to submit the offer, which he felt was too low and a waste of his time. All of the following are true except: the buyer's agent failed in his duties to his principal. Agents are only required to submit offers they believe will be accepted. The buyer's agent is subject to disciplinary action by the Real Estate Commission. The buyer's agent did a disservice to the seller. Explanation. Agents have to submit all offers. It doesn't matter how the buyer's agent in this question feels about the offer. They are obligated to submit it even if it was for $1 and an old rusty car that's parked on the street. When their client writes the offer, they are obligated to present it to the other party. 41. Appurtenances refer to: proposed easements, encumbrances on the use of the property, contractual limitations, those rights that go with the land. Explanation. The answer here is those rights go with the land. Appurtenances are just something that belongs to someone else. They go with the land. They carry with it when it sells. 42. A buyer agreed to buy a property for $145,000, signed purchase and sale contract, and deposited $5,000 earnest money with ABC Realty. The seller was unable to provide marketable title. In this case, the next step is for ABC Realty to divide the earnest money in half between the seller and buyer, return the earnest money to the buyer after deducting the commission, return the entire amount to the buyer, forward the entire amount to the seller. Explanation. The answer here is to return the entire amount to the buyer. The buyer did everything right. They lived up to their end of the agreement, and it is the seller who is not able to provide marketable title. In that case, they must return the buyer's earnest money deposit. 43. A poisonous gas given off as part of combustion is known as carbon dioxide, radon, carbon monoxide, paint. Explanation. Carbon monoxide is the answer here. It's created whenever there is something producing combustion, like a furnace or boiler. 44. A contract may be cancelled by mutual agreement between the parties, with 30 days notice by either party, by an attorney for either party, under no circumstances. Explanation. This is a tricky question, and one of the ones where I recommend choosing the best answer because there sometimes can be more than one. The answer for the exam is by mutual agreement between the parties, sometimes called mutual rescission. However, depending on your state laws, you may have an attorney review period in which a client may direct their attorney to cancel the contract without penalty. While that's possible, mutual agreement is a better choice because it is unanimous. If both parties decide to cancel and they are in agreement, contract is canceled in most cases. 45. An apartment building has 10 apartments rented at a monthly rate of $780. The property closed on August 18th, with the seller having the day of closing. Using a 365-day year, what will be the seller debit on the closing statement? $3,271, $3,000, $4,800, $3,465. Explanation. The answer is $3,271. 46. A sales contract that does not include consideration is voidable, void, valid, unenforceable. Explanation. The answer here is void. To be valid, a contract must have all of the essential elements. It needs competent parties, meeting of the minds, a legal objective, and consideration. If it's a real estate contract, it must also be in writing. 47. As a listing agent, what obligations do you owe to an unrepresented buyer? Loyalty, fairness, and honesty. Honesty and fairness. Loyalty and honesty. Fairness only. Explanation. The answer here is honesty and fairness. Depending on your state or textbook, you may see this as honesty and fair dealing as well. Loyalty is mentioned here, which is a duty to your principal, as one of your fiduciary duties, but not to an unrepresented buyer who is a customer, not a client or principal. 48. What formula would be used to estimate the value of a property using the income approach to appraising? Capitalization rate multiplied by gross income. Net operating income divided by the capitalization rate. Net income multiplied by the capitalization rate. The value of the land and improvements minus the depreciation. Explanation. The answer here is net operating income divided by capitalization rate. Head over to one of our math videos if you'd like to see how this works and manually work out one of these problems step by step. 49. The transfer of title by descent means the owner transferred his property interest by gift, died testate, and the property passed to his heirs. Died intestate, and the property passed to his heirs. Transferred his property interest by sale. Explanation. The answer here is died intestate and property is passed to his heirs. The laws of descent tell us what to do if a person who owns property dies without a valid will. If they have no heirs and the laws of descent are followed, eventually the property will escheat back to the state.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap on the first 50 questions you should be studying for the 2022 real estate exam. If you made it this far, congratulations. Join our free Facebook study group where we share additional practice exam questions and take requests to create demo videos to help you through any topics you're struggling with.